what's next in the sense for coaching? You're the new assistant coach now. If you were to come in the first day next season, what's the first thing you would say to them?
I would give them grace. I think it's something that we lack as wrestlers.
On the other side of things, how would you measure success for your wrestlers? Some of them may not reach a level that you ever have, but you also want to coach them to get to that point. How do you measure that success?
You want to learn everything you need to know about wrestling?
Absolutely. Princeton University was founded in 1746. Not only is it known for its vibrant academics, but also its successful athletic team. Today, we are interviewing their newest assistant coach, USA Wrestling Ambassador, Pan Am champ, two-time All-American, Final X runner-up, Nate Jackson. Today, we will be talking about his setbacks as well as his accomplishments and his new program that he has to offer for Black individuals who are joining or want to join in wrestling, and how you can join. Thank you, and please enjoy this episode of Shaun Takes On, where we talk to the leaders of today to empower the ones of tomorrow. Nate the Great Jackson, when did you know you wanted to be great?
When I was a little boy, I had two great parents. My mother, she was a singer. That's what I knew her by, just in the house. Like, I didn't know what she did for work or anything like that. I knew that my mother could sing very well. I knew that she was great. She was the best at it. My father was a barber, and he's been cutting hair like his whole life. And he had a barber shop, and I grew up thinking that he was the greatest barber ever. So that name actually came from just Nate the Great. That's my dad. That's my dad, honestly. So to hear people call me Nate the Great sometimes, it just reminds me of my dad. I'm just Nate. I'm just Nate here on this podcast. So that's who I am in real life. Like, I'm just Nate. I'm Nathan. I'm a brother. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And yeah, I'm just that name, man, it means something. It's really special.
Yeah, it's also your Instagram name too, so that's why I also mentioned that.
You got it.
Perfect. I mean, going right into that, you said it best. You're a father, you're a son, you're also a president, former wrestler, and now new assistant coach. What's it like? What's the family demographic like, and what role does your family, immediate and the one that you're married into, play in your life?
Yeah, so life is like very big. So at different times, my parents played a different role than they do now. I think right now they take like a backseat a little bit. My parents are in Chicago, still working and doing their thing and still raising us as kids, their children all over the country. But when I first started my journey with wrestling, and even as a family, like I started my journey as a family when I was 17 years old. Me and my wife, we had our son. So I had a lot, like, very secure parents, and they were there all the time for me. And that's just on my side. And then on my wife's parents' side, like, her father was a great role model for me. And her mother has just been like a really encourager this whole time. So really great relationships. Her mother is actually planning on transitioning here in New Jersey with me. So family is a big part of my life. And I'm not even talking about the family in my house, man. Like, the dynamics in my house, I have 4 children. My oldest is my son. His name is Nathan as well. He's the third. And then I have Carter Ray, Zoe, and Kenley. And they're all, 10, 7, and 6, all my girls. And it's cool, man. I try to treat my son like a young king. I try to get him ready for all of the things that the world is going to try to throw at him. And my daughters, my wife is really stewarding them and shepherding them and leading them into becoming great women. My wife is the best. She's the best. She does a lot. She does whatever is necessary for our household to be stable and secure. And she's just our kind of our leader in love. Not kind of. She's our shepherd in love. She leads in that. And I try to keep things moving. So that's my job, to leave the house and keep things moving.
I love that, and support really goes a long way. I mean, I don't have my own family, but just having a family that supports you in your journey and your career takes you way farther in life than a lot of other people who may not have that support.
Absolutely.
Does any of your kids, sons or daughters, are they going to wrestle?
So my son does wrestle. He's been wrestling for some time now. He's doing well. He's doing well. I think he likes it. I want him to continue to like it. It's hard to fall in love with something, but you can't force love. You know how it works. So I want him
Mhm.
to find love for it. I know he does have a lot of respect for it just because he's done it. Just gonna continue to encourage the love. And then my daughters are around the sport, so they wrestle at the house every day. They wrestle with me on the mats at work, all the time. So they could wrestle, but I don't think that
Mm.
they want to pursue it, which is like funny. But
Yeah.
I don't blame them. It's a lot of things that go into being that and that becoming your identity. So in our household, like, we believe in Christ, so I feel like finding your identity in Christ is way more valuable than anything else. So that's kind of something that they're working on right now. I'm working on it. My son's working on it. My wife's working on it. But trying to put that first is really difficult with a lot of distractions. So I'm happy that they are kind of taking the back seat to athletics right now. But I encourage them to, like, go get a sweat, go run, go do your thing. But I think they're just working on relationships right now.
Absolutely. But I like the point that you mentioned about having to fall in love with the sport, really being dedicated and disciplined in it, getting right into your wrestling resume. I mean, we can sit here all day and talk about all the accomplishments that Nate Jackson has accomplished, but just to highlight some, I mean, you were named 2024 U.S. Athlete of the Week, Golden Boot, I think you received, Last Chance Qualifier champion, Final X runner up, new assistant coach, also father, baptized last year, over 100 wins in college. You got your sports broadcasting major, but just some things to highlight from your junior and senior year, because I seen you elevate from that redshirt freshman year all the way to your redshirt sophomore year. You have a 30-13 record, NCAA qualifier, two-time All-American. You went to Indiana University, as well as a two-time Joe DeBoki Most Outstanding Wrestler, as well as a two-time All-American honored wrestler. And overseas, world, you are a two-time national team member, World Cup champion, as well as an amazing pioneer and ambassador for the sport of wrestling. You've put in so much time and effort as well as dedication to this sport. I'd love to pick your brain on where exactly you're going with that, or where exactly, or what legacy do you think you've left, in your opinion?
I think the legacy is still unfolding. So
Mm.
in the Bible, it talks about our life. So everything that you just highlighted, to me, just sounds like a lot of things that have happened in my life, right?
Mm.
And I've had a lot of lows in the midst of a lot of ups. But life is long and life is big, and I'm the only one really who knows everything about my life, apart from, if you believe in God, right? So for me, in order for me to stay striving during that, stay trying to push to the next thing and trying to look for more, I'd have to also agree to be complicit to whatever the world values. And I'm
Mm.
not. So in the Bible, it talks about giving up your life. It says, if you give up your life, then you'll find it. So I'm
Mm.
actually stepping away from wrestling for a little while. And I'm going to coach. And I think, honestly, I'm probably at the top of my athletic ability right now. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think as a wrestler, I feel like I'm still growing and getting better every day in the room. I'm still wrestling with these guys. But I would rather pour into people. And there's way too many people and way too little time for me not to be doing that. So I was blessed for an opportunity to coach at Princeton, which is the number one academic institution in the world. A lot of bright
Absolutely.
minds come here. I feel like I can make really lasting impacts on young men and women who come through this program. And I would be doing myself a disservice. I'd be doing my family a disservice, and I'd be doing um, my life, right? My all of the things that I achieved, quote unquote. I'd be doing them a disservice if I don't take the opportunity to pour back into them. And I feel like me continuing to chase all of these gold medals could really distract from what really matters, and that's just helping other people.
Absolutely. And I love that too. I genuinely love to help other people too. And I think that's why I gravitate towards you. And to answer your question, yes, I do believe in God. I have a personal relationship with God and I'm willing to continuously learn at the Bible. However, I don't go to church. I don't, and that's just my opinion. I don't want this to be a heavily religious
Yeah,
conversation. However, I did notice, and it's great of you to mention that you do mention God a lot in your everything and your Instagram as well as your life and just in this conversation. And I think it's important for people to have a personal relationship with God as well.
absolutely.
But I really do agree that helping other people is really what everybody's put on this earth. I think we're two hands are better than one always. And pouring in other people, even after I've just listed your successes, is truly amazing to think that, hey, I want to step back and help others. I think that's truly amazing. But to kind of continue on with your success in your career in wrestling, you did have a couple of setbacks before. One of the most notably, a Flow Wrestling documentary was made on you about how you went to Final X. I think it was a year or two ago when you had to verse Jaden Cox. That story, I want to highlight how amazing you are. Right? I know you were here to talk. We're here to talk about other people and how you helped and help other people blossom, but just to highlight you as a person, how you stuck through that adversity was amazing. For those of you who haven't caught it, Nate Jackson has a Flow Wrestling documentary about how he went from winning the last chance, won the last chance qualifier and got to Final X, but you had a bit of a mishap in the beginning. And that mishap was the fact that you were falsely accused of having done steroids. And the crazy part about it, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but the crazy part about it was that, and tell me if I'm correct, the day before you had the court hearing, but then you were cleared to wrestle that next day. You went to sleep, you wrestled, and you won the last chance qualifier after one, being ineligible for potentially 4 years and almost retiring, but also two, being off the mat for a little while and still coming back and getting that dub. What can you tell me in your own words that experience was like?
Yeah, I think that your question covered, as you walk through it, you covered a multitude of things.
Mm.
Um, I would say that I'm not religious at all. So I went to a church. I was actually baptized at a church that I don't go to anymore. I
Mm.
was very religious up until maybe the last week. I'm not really religious anymore. There was a sermon preached on Pentecost Sunday. It's called um, Counterfeit Righteousness by Philip Anthony Mitchell. He's a pastor of a church called 2819, and I'm a member of that church now since that
Mm.
sermon was preached. Before then, I was really big into religion. I was a hardcore Christian, and I was practicing a lot of works righteousness. But religion separates people, bro.
Mm. How so?
Christianity separates Islam, separates this, separates that, and they're all worshiping not the same God. They're all worshiping a false God.
Mm.
So, in stepping away, I was able to learn that, and I don't think I would have learned that without saying I'm okay with stepping away. You're talking about a case from a couple years ago, man. That was crazy. It came at such a time. I'm not even going to go into the case
Right.
because I boldenone was the steroid, and I have no access to anything like that. I eat clean. I don't even use like supplements at all. Like I'm a pretty small guy too for my weight class. Like I'm not one of the bigger, most jacked guys. I use my speed and technique to get by. But that case was so weird and odd because that was something that I was innocent of, right? But there's so much that happened during that time because of the stress that I was under and so many bad choices that I made during that time. alcoholism, weed, all these things that hit that I tried to fall in love with at a time where I needed to fall in love with Christ, and I never really made that connection. But during the time, He covered me, and He covered me, and He kept giving me grace.
Mm.
So yeah, I slept in my own bed the night before Last Chance because it happened to be in New Jersey. I don't believe in coincidences anymore because it's too many, but
Mm.
it happened to be in New Jersey. But I slept in my own bed because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get cleared because a Boldenone case had never been cleared by a performance athlete or had never been vindicated, decisions flipped ever in the history of not just wrestling, of athletics. So, and this isn't just in the country, this was around the world. And by the grace of God, I had the best lawyers qualified to take care of that case. And I was not a great steward of them. I didn't help them get information. I didn't make it easier for them. I was
Mm.
distracting myself with alcohol and women and a lot of things um, that were a distraction ultimately, and it didn't help me. But God gave me grace. Christ gave me grace and a second chance. And I wrestled in the Last Chance, and I wrestled really well. I competed in that qualified me to wrestle in the World Team Trials because there was a World Team Trials before Final X.
Mm.
I won World Team Trials, blitzed through everybody. It was incredible run. I beat Jaden Cox in the second match. I should have won the first match. He would say that no, it's all good.
Yeah.
But he beat me in that third match. But it was a great match and great matches, and it really catapulted my career and it catapulted my belief. So I started to believe in myself more and more and more and more and more, and I kept believing in myself and believing in myself, and I started to shift and thank God after I believed in myself. I thank God for different things happening because of my belief. And then I got to the point a couple days ago where I'm like, um, I'm believing in God and thanking God for the gift that He gave me. So
Mm.
I'm honoring the gift. I'm thanking Him for the medal. I'm thanking Him for the award. I'm thanking Him for all of this stuff. This stuff. I'm thanking Him for my family, and I'm thanking Him for each individual person of my family, and I'm thanking Him for having a nice wife who listens and does what I want, and having kids who are doing kind of better, and I was thanking Him, and then I was like, I'm not thanking Him for being who He is. I'm thanking Him for a gift.
Yeah.
And I decided that I'm going to stop thanking God for gifts. I'm going to stop thanking Him for His gifts, and I'm going to start to trust Him with my life because of His consistency. And that's what I did. And
Mm.
since then, man, I don't even see the world like this anymore. So everything that we talk about, for me, it's like that wasn't me a lot of the time. It wasn't my life. It's a dichotomy, man. That was me in the world, and this is me in my other life. And I'm trying to build this out, but nothing has been here. So it's like a wasteland on this side of it. And it's a lot of work to do. But that other side, it was cool, man. It was flashy. It was the world.
Mm. You mentioned that you stopped looking at what he does for you, or I'm paraphrasing. You basically said that you looked at what he stopped doing for you, and now you just trust in him. What is that switch exactly? Because I'm a little confused on what you
So
mean
it's
by
a
that.
choice, man. It's a choice. It's when, if your mother says that she loves you,
Yeah.
and then, or maybe your mother, let's do it like this.
Okay.
Your mother loves you very much, so she gave you a phone. That phone you love very much because it sparked your love and passion for doing podcasts.
Right.
Right? Let's say that. And you were so happy that you knew how to do podcasts, and you really fell in love with that phone because that phone really enabled you to do that, and that phone enabled you to build up and save up to where you can get a nice camera, and that phone enabled you to connect with a bunch of people and network and build a team. And that phone, dude, like you love that phone, right? That's the
Right.
best phone ever. And you thank your mom for it every time you pick up that phone. Every time you answer that phone, you thank your mom. But have you ever stopped to say like, instead of thanking my mom for her gift, maybe I should learn more, like build a relationship with my mom outside of the gift.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
You got me?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at in my life
Mm,
with all its bells and whistles and a beautiful wife and wonderful kids and a great job and decent money and a nice house and all that stuff, all this stuff, dude. I got tired of just thanking God for the stuff, and now I'm gonna start chasing God
mm.
and
It
learning
sounds
about Him and what He has for me.
right. I guess the only part too is that you said you're not religious now, but
Not at
you're trying
all.
to study him.
No.
What is that? What's
So
the difference in
religion is saying, okay, on Sunday I'm gonna praise God.
okay.
Religion is saying, um, if I do this, then this happens. If I do this and I treat people the right way, then my life is better. Then
Okay.
I get to go into heaven. I get to stay out of hell. Like I don't know what people like. Religions are different. Christianity
Yeah.
was my religion, and honestly, I'm still wiping my arms down from it. I'm
Mm,
still wiping myself clean of it. Christianity is great because it led me to Christ, and Christ is the way. And now I understand where He was trying to lead me a little bit better. So
gotcha.
now I don't have to be so consumed about like whether somebody smokes or drinks or whatever. It's about where your love is. Where's your heart? If you smoke and drink because you love being drunk and you love the feeling you get when you're high, then you're in love with your life. If you do all that stuff for no reason, you're just in love with how you feel, and it's all about you. When you chase God, which is the point of religion, I think, like everybody's trying to interact with the spiritual. When you're chasing God, it's like, why are you bringing Him all of your issues constantly and dumping on Him? Why aren't you letting Him lead you? Because you're alive. The sun came up again. It's like, yo, what's the sun? The sun is this big ball of what, like, dude, like these ideas are just way too big.
Mm,
But Christianity was great because it led me to the Bible, which started to make a lot of sense out of the world, right? So now I'm looking at the world from a biblical perspective instead of looking at a
gotcha.
world from a me perspective. And
Gotcha.
looking at the world from the biblical perspective led me to my walk. And as I've been walking, dude, I'm just gaining strength. And I was gaining strength. And my life started to change as I was walking.
Mm,
And my life got better and better. And it's like, dude, like my life is way better than I expected. People always say like, oh, I got to go win an Olympic title. Man, I wanted to win a state title. I
mm-hmm.
wanted to get out of the hood. I wanted to make it to where my son could eat. Because when I was 17 years old and my wife was 17 years old, we had our son. And I had no money and no job. And I wasn't in college. And I had nothing to look forward to. But God
Mm-hmm.
was there and He said, look at all of your gifts. Look at all of your talents, bro. Use your talents. And I went from being a person who had never won a match at state to becoming a state champion. And I watched him move that mountain, and I thanked him for the state title.
Mm,
And I watched him move the next mountain and me getting into college where my grades were shot, man. My grades were bad. But I had a loving mother who led me to do some school in the summer that helped me become eligible to wrestle in college. They gave me a full ride scholarship because this random coach came to Indiana to watch me wrestle in an Indiana versus Illinois duel of a state title that I shouldn't have won. I got to wrestle in
mm,
the Illinois versus Indiana duel. I wrestled by chance their recruit, their number one recruit, and I beat him like 18-8 or something. Like just smoked him, smashed him, right? The
mm,
coach was in there. He went back and said, hey, we have to offer this kid a full ride scholarship. I took that full ride scholarship and I used that full ride scholarship to provide for my family. That coach who found me, he wasn't at campus when I got there because I had to enroll the next semester. He actually had left and went to a different school to coach. When I graduated and made it through craziness, because I had 3 kids in college, man. 3 kids married in college, nuts. When I made it through that, I right after I was done, right after graduation, it was on graduation day. This dude called me. The coach who recruited me to Indiana in the first place called me. That coach is Joe Dubuque. He was coaching at Princeton. He wanted me to come.
Right.
I told you, in 2022 is a crazy year. Drinking, smoking, lying, cheating, stealing. Crazy year. All of those things that's talked about in the New Testament or in the Old Testament in the laws, like thou shalt not, thou shalt not. The only thing I didn't do was murder. But, you know, one of those nights, I thought about taking my life. And I was driving a car, and I was driving real fast. And where I was headed back to a place that I knew was going to be not a warm welcome. There was a lot of trouble back at home, and I was headed back to that. And for a second, I'm like, I'm drunk, and I'm driving real fast through this neighborhood. Maybe I should just, like, crash into a pole or something. And I swerved, and I hit a car. And I hit the car hard, and the car was smashed up. And I didn't get out the car. I stopped. I realized I had hit it. And I kept driving home. I got all the way home. The night ensued. Crazy. A lot of craziness happened that night. On top of that, a lot of things that I died to a long time ago. I can't regret them anymore because I died to those things. I left those in baptismal waters. Like, that's not here no more.
Right.
But I loved that life. God allowed me to die to that life right there. And over the next couple of days, I picked myself up. I invited my wife, who I was in the process of a divorce and figuring out how we were going to divide responsibilities and figuring out where everybody was going to live. I asked her, to come to church. And it was random. It was just like, all right, let's go to church. We didn't really go to church since we left Chicago. So we went from Chicago to Indiana to New Jersey. We hadn't really went to church much. Randomly, just because my parents blessed me with the seed of, like, knowledge, just knowing that God exists. Not even they're still on their journey right now, but they know that God exists. So I'm like, they're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure it out, and I give them grace, man. I give you grace. Follow Christ, man. You already know that God exists. Follow Christ. The issue with us is, like, we just see so much and we take in all that information and make our own decisions, but we're making them all based off of our presuppositions of the world. So you actually have to get out of your presupposition. You got to go read that book, because how can a book outsell every book every single year throughout history? Read the Holy Bible. It's the #1 bestseller of all time. It's hard to read. It's dense. Use resources, man. Like, use audiobooks, whatever. Like, the stuff is easy. It makes sense. The deal is, don't see yourself and look for yourself in the Bible. And that's what every pastor I've ever seen teach a sermon does. They look for themselves in the Bible. Look for Christ in the Bible. I heard one sermon, 2819, Counterfeit Righteousness, Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell. He talked about that. Everybody else is talking about the world. There's only one way. But that way is a gateway for everybody, and it's love. So I love you, bro. I would die for you. The fact that you called me, it just means that we're supposed to talk. It's not a coincidence. So I would die for you. I just want to let you know I would die for you because of what I believe. If somebody had a gun up to your head right now and they were saying where you are and telling me what I had to do, I would go kiss my kids and I would tell my wife. Everybody in my household would understand.
Mm.
But I'm hoping that doesn't have to happen, right?
Right. No, I
But
get.
it's
Yeah,
crazy, man. It's crazy. I just
it
been
is.
covered, man, and I'm happy to be where I am now.
I love that. I mean, that was a lot, and I appreciate you opening up about your experiences. I had never even known that. Obviously, I mean, I don't know you,
The
but I did a
world,
lot.
bro. I,
Yeah,
I want to tear Instagram down, man. I'm on there because I care and I love the people who are on there with me. But
yeah,
man, like a lot of it is a distraction and it's not real.
it is. It is.
And
And
a lot of it is real because there's a lot of ups and downs in life.
mm-hmm,
But I'm done with the ups and downs, man. Life is
mm,
good. I had the best day of my life today. Yesterday, I
wow.
had the best day of my life up until that point.
I think it's like I said, it was a lot, and I really appreciate you again for opening up. I just, you know, I want to kind of you've highlighted everything really setbacks wise and everything, and you've learned your lesson. What's next in the sense for coaching? You're the new assistant coach now. What do you hope to give your kids, your athletes, your wrestlers, what you didn't have? Like how what are you going to equip them with? Like if you were to come in the first day next season, what's the first thing you would say to them?
I would give them grace. So I'm going to give them grace every day, all day, and I'm going to give them sound instruction. So I'm going to give them a law that we got to follow. I'm going to give them a couple of rules around wrestling and just foundational things like technical do's and don'ts. It's a few things, man. It's only a couple of things that are truth in wrestling. I'm going to give them that
Mm,
truth, and then I'm going to shepherd them in grace and just constantly, every time they beat themselves up, I'm going to say, hey, like, treat yourself like you're responsible for taking care of yourself. Like, don't beat yourself up. If you had a kid right now and they did something wrong, you would tell them, hey, it's okay. Like, you can do something right next time. So you have that in you. Pull that out of you and use that every time you need it. That also will help you do that when you see other people fall and other people
mm,
stumble. You'll be like, hey, man, it's not that big of a deal. You're all good. Um, Here's how I would help, or here's how you can not do that again. You know.
yeah. I think the saying goes to just jumping ahead a little bit. The saying goes to with wrestling, once you've wrestled, life is easy. Pretty much everything else is easy after that. But also I think it's interesting to ask, what are technically speaking in wrestling, what is something that you could take from the large stage, being on the world stage and now coming down back to help or being a assistant coach at Princeton now. What are some techniques, teachings that you might have learned from maybe even Reese
Yeah,
that you
he's
can bring to
amazing.
the kids?
Highlight Humphrey, Reese Humphrey, best coach in the world.
Yeah.
Easy, easy, best coach in the world. The thing that he taught me was balance. And honestly, if you look at him as a wrestler and him in life, he's got balance, man.
Mm,
But positionally, like that just means like your stance, being able to be in your stance all the time. So like sometimes you're in a stance, but it's a little higher. Sometimes you're in a stance and it's a little squattier. Sometimes you're in a stance and you're on your knees. Sometimes you're on a stance and you're in like a front headlock. But understand where the balance is in each position, so you can be into the guy and putting pressure on the guy, but
mm,
not too extended. Where it gets bad. I think that balance is a great thing to talk about in general too. Like you got to have strengths across a multitude of things. So you have to find a system that works for your particular style. Like if you're a leg attacker or you whatever, you got to find a system that works where you can stay enthusiastic as you wrestle. Okay,
mm,
enthusiasm is a big word that I'm going to be using for my guys at Princeton because I think it's something that we lack as wrestlers. And if you look at all the best wrestlers, you look at like Aaron Brooks or like even Bo Bassett, like pretty enthusiastic. David Taylor, like enthusiastic. What that means is like when a challenge comes up, they're like eager for the challenge. When a collar tie happens, they're eager for the challenge. Anytime you
mm,
have a fearful thought in any position, you should be courageous. You should be eager. You should be enthusiastic for the opportunity, because it's an opportunity for you to test your mettle, for you to grow through the struggle, all these different things. So when you get a collar tie, you can run away from it out of fear, or try to clear it away, pull away, get up, get out, get away, move away, sprawl, run away. Like, or you can make it to where every time somebody does something, you knew that was going to happen. Like a collar tie, everybody collar ties. When he collar ties, you're going to go directly forward, and through the position, you're going to lift the hand up and move and grab the wrist. If you pull back, he's going to know that you're fearful of the position, which is going to make him squeeze harder, and you move backwards. So now he's taking ground, right? So he's able to pressure you. So for you, it's like, no. I'm going to move through this position. And even when it's hard, I'm going to continue to push through it, which is going to actually discourage him from collar tying me. And it's going to make him think that it didn't have any effect. And yeah, I'm tired, but even when I'm tired, I'm going to move through the position each time. I don't always have to get back into position either, right? Maybe when the hand comes up, I'll attack the hand before it gets to my collar.
Yeah. It sounds a little bit like, working through positions is really key, and not just bailing on because you're uncomfortable in certain positions. I think it's huge.
You want to learn everything you need to know about wrestling?
Absolutely.
Faith over fear. So every time you get in any position that feels uncomfortable, if your first response is fear, then it doesn't mean that you lose that position every time, but the probability of you winning that position goes way down. If you're wrestling somebody good or better than you or anything like that, if you choose fear, they score in that position because they're a little bit more skilled, or they're stronger, or they're faster. If you challenge it, you have an opportunity to drag the position out a little bit longer, and then you challenge it again. And then you challenge it again. And then you challenge the next fearful position. You challenge the unknown again. We don't know all the positions, but if we know that every time a challenge comes, our mode of being is to be courageous, we win. Or you have a higher probability of winning, and then you get better at winning over time, right? Then you have different challenges. But that's the only way you progress.
I think you just unlocked the actual mindset to chain wrestling, but also situational wrestling. I know fundamentals when you're wrestling in certain positions, your coach is like, wrestle through it. But you're like, okay, I'm wrestling. But like, you're kind of just doing it because your coach told you. You're not doing it because Like, I think people who truly understand the sport as yourself have that mindset when they're wrestling. It's like, hey, I took a bad shot, but I'm going to make it good. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to get going. But you also unlock the mindset you should be having in those positions, especially because, as you said, and as you and Reese have highlighted as well, not many people make jumps on the world stage. They usually incline inch by inch, and those inches can happen just by what you explained, and knowing your opponent, but also kind of feeling for the position and getting and working your way through it. But now you've given us that mindset. I feel like you've made people who are already unstoppable once they completely understand that.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids out here who are operating under that mindset, and there's a lot of tools out here where people are kind of unlocking it. And it's a great thing to use as a wrestler, but it's the same thing that you use in life. Like, okay, boom, fire breaks out in my kitchen right now. What should I do?
To get rid of it, you got to get rid of the fire.
What am I doing?
Finding a fire extinguisher.
Okay, walk me through it. Go ahead. What are you going to do?
And then from there, you take the pin out, you spray it over the...
Oh, no. I sprayed it, and it combusted. Now the whole house is on fire. All right, what are you doing?
Oh. I'm going to get out of the house. Hopefully my phone's not charged. I'm going to call the fire department.
So you're going to run? You're going to call somebody else? You're going to call the police?
Yeah.
That's all fear, in my opinion. That's all me saying that nothing can change unless I do this. So my faith says, I'm just going to let it burn and trust that I'm going to be out of this situation.
Okay.
And through evidence over my life, that's the right call.
Okay.
Obviously, it's hard to live out. right? That's the
Yeah.
struggle. That's where life gets hard because it's hard to
Mm.
live out. But
So wait,
yeah,
so you would
man, I think that
you would let
wrestling
the
is simple, man.
well, hold on, you would let the house burn down? Is that
Um,
what your answer was?
if that was supposed to happen, that's what would happen.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Now I'm not saying that I wouldn't call the police or use a fire extinguisher or any of these things. I'm
Right.
saying that if something threw off an alarm in me and made me want to flee or run and then do something, my
Mm-hmm.
first response should be what you said. My first response, as soon as I hear
Right.
or heard that the fire blew up, I should be calling right away and like calm and chill,
Mm-hmm.
because I trust that this guy's going to be able to help put this fire out.
Right.
If maybe as soon as the fire breaks out, I run right into the kitchen and I grab the extinguisher while everybody's screaming or whatever, because I'm not screaming. I know exactly what's supposed to happen.
Right. Calm, level head
So
through.
that's the point. That's the point.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I get you. Yeah. But
Yeah.
transitioning though, on the other side of things, how would you measure success for your wrestlers? Some of them may not reach a level that you ever have, but you also want to coach them to get to that point. How do you measure that success?
Um I I guess you can see it. You can kind of tell when people are being successful. I think the success is more of a state of being than um a arrival to something,
Correct.
because otherwise success is just measured by the eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has different opinions in the world, right? We all got
Mm-hmm.
different values and different things that we think are good and think are bad or think are right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. How do you measure success other than being able to look and tell that somebody is in the process of being successful right now? I think for me, I measure success based off of somebody's attitude. So we talked about enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is a Greek word. You know what enthusiasm looks like, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's like, oh yeah, like hey, go. So
Wants to be there.
enthusiasm is a Greek word. Um, or in the Greek, enthusiasm comes from a word that means to be filled with the Spirit of God. So when I see that, I'm like, dang, this person figured it out. And maybe they just figured it out for 30 seconds. Maybe they figured it out for 1 minute. Maybe they figured it out for a full wrestling match, like Aaron Brooks, for
Mm.
6 minutes of enthusiasm while he wrestles. And maybe they'll go further than just the 6 minutes of the wrestling match, and they'll actually let it bleed into their day. And maybe they'll say, instead of just giving it 50% of my day, maybe I'm going to give it 75% of my day and just focused on success and being successful and having enthusiasm. And maybe they'll choose to give their entire life to being enthusiastic and see what happens.
Right. Right. What's your advice for new recruits,
Um,
especially joining your
I think
school?
it's all gut, man. It's all gut. So I used to think that you look at all the evidence. I used to think that well, Princeton is a great school. This is how many people we had All American in the last couple days. This
Mm-hmm.
is how many. This is the national champ that we got a couple years ago. Pat Glory, our first national champ in 50 years.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do because this is our vision and our strategic plan of how we're going to make this the best uh, wrestling program in the entire country, how we're going to usurp Penn State, usurp Iowa, and do all these things. And this is your part in it. Or we can say, you've seen us. You've seen everything that's needed to see. You have a sheet that says everything that we do and that we can do and everything that we want to do and that we will do. And I want you to do a gut check and ask yourself where you want to be in the next 4 years. Ask yourself where you want to be in the next 10 years. Ask yourself where you want to be for the rest of your life. And after that, I think that's it. So after that, it's out of my hands. So if they come to Princeton, they're gonna get this, whatever this talk is. They're gonna get this at a personal level because I'm gonna be willing to talk to them and
Right.
willing to hear them and understand them, and willing to really learn how I can serve them best. And if they go somewhere else, then I think that they're going somewhere where they're going to be protected and covered, and somewhere where they're supposed to be.
Mm, I love that. And I think it's really phenomenal. Like you said, it takes gut and knowing where, and, kind of like really being within reality just to kind of wrap that bow in that aspect right there. On a side note, I want to kind of highlight for the audience, people who are not familiar with wrestling. How do you explain the unpredictability of the sport? For example, I'm going to use you back in 2016. Um, you wrestled Bo Nickal. You were one of the first people to take his undefeated streak away. From there, in I think it was 2016, you also wrestled, and he was ranked number one. And I think you were, what you were eighth or ninth, something, I think that year.
Yep.
Um, but you ultimately took a loss to the 14th ranked Devontae Mahomes in a tight decision earlier in that season, and then you faced Miles Martin twice, lost to him twice. But then at the NCAAs, you meet Miles Martin and Bo Nickal. He faces both you and Miles Martin semifinals and finals, and finally loses to Miles Martin and in their fourth seeing, even though Bo Nickal has beat him three times. How do you explain that type of unpredictability of people taking losses and wins to people when it's not making sense numerically, but on the mat it's anybody's day? How do you explain that to people who are not familiar with the sport?
The any particular day, that type of thing. Okay, I got you. I
Mm-hmm,
know.
mm-hmm.
So let me go back to something that you highlighted. You said that you like that I talked about like the gut and how it's like steeped, like heavily steeped in just like reality and like somebody making
Right,
a personal decision through their perspective.
right.
Um, I would challenge that and say that I think that the gut, that feeling that you get, is transcendent. I feel like that feeling that you get is outside of. I think that's just as much outside of all of the stuff that we experience as anything else, and I trust in that. So I push them to trust in that, and then I can fully trust that because it's like, yo, whatever happens is good because they're making their best decision. Now getting into like the Bo Nickal thing, yo, that was crazy. You talk about belief, like you talk about some crazy stuff. So that
Mm-hmm.
year, when I first got to Indiana University, in 2013,
Okay.
I hmm, I struggle, man. Like I started during the middle of the year, and it was like trial by fire. So I went in there, and they were in the middle of their season right before Big Ten season. So they were picking it up. They were doing more runs. They were doing all this stuff. And again, like I'm a guy who just had worked at my dad's shop for 5 months, cutting hair because I needed some money to feed my kid. And I had just left my kid with my parents at my parents' house so my wife can finish high school and I could start my college career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I went into a Division I Big Ten wrestling room. And I was like, yo, what is this? Everybody was super strong. Everybody was fast. Everybody had a work ethic. Everybody listened well. Everybody drilled hard and drilled well. I was like, yo, there's no breaks. But after a couple of weeks and like some really important people, like, and I saw both ends of it. I saw Taylor Walsh, who was like, I think that he was more like chaos, right? And he was like he really like allowed me to see some things that some things that I had at my access. Like if I needed to cut through a run, like hey, I could just cut instead of running around the whole campus. I could just cut halfway through it and then head up here. And it was crazy, but he also had a really great work ethic and he won runs. He would win
Mm-hmm.
runs like straight up. He would beat Ryan LeBlanc, who I'm going to talk about a little bit here in a second. He would beat him sometimes in runs, like crazy. But I saw how you could like figure out your own path and be successful from him. And I had Ryan LeBlanc, who I would consider like order. So like the yin and yang, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
yin and yang. That's chaos and order. It's balance. Ryan was like, well, order. They both were like my seniors. Like they were killing it and they were doing well. They were getting pins for the team and all this stuff. And I was in a redshirt year, so half that year I just redshirted.
Yeah.
He was like leading the right way. He was at all the practices at the right time. He was working hard. He was inspiring the other guys. He would pump me up. Like he would beat me down. Like he was really good. He would can I curse on here?
Sure.
I don't want to curse. I'm not going to curse. He would whip my butt, right? And he always like encouraged me, like after he beat me up, like, hey, you're doing a good job. Hey, good job. Doing good work. That was like the order and the structure that I needed, right? And then you had Dwayne, who my head coach. He was a madman. He was crazy. He taught me so many lessons. But having both of them and seeing two wildly different perspectives from two guys who were animals on the mat, like very good, it gave me a lot to think about early in my career. But I had never really hit success. And I didn't cut much weight at all the first couple of years. And then I hit success, made it to nationals one year, just through some different matches. Like, and the junior year, like I just thought I was the best. I thought I was gonna win. And then there was this kid, man. This kid I wrestled all year. This kid, he was from Maryland. His name is Miles Martin, and I would wrestle him he was a true freshman. I was like, dude, I would be winning every match. I took him down. I was like, I'm better than this kid, but he would always beat me. He would always beat me. He beat me 4 times that year. Crazy. 4 times. I think he beat me by 1 point each time. And it's crazy because he's been such a pivotal part of my journey, like just as growing up into a man. Even, last couple of years, I've wrestled with him and like had to overcome some things. And the last time we wrestled, I had a victory over him. But had to unlearn some things for sure. He would always beat me, so he kept me honest. But I knew that I thought that he wasn't that good. I was like, he's not going to be like, it's the other guys, right?
Yeah.
And then I saw another kid, Bo Nickal, come out of nowhere, just pinning everybody, beating everybody. He had taken a red shirt, and he was on fire. And I saw that we were going to hit. And I watched him. He had just won the Southern Scuffle. So he was #1 ranked, and everybody was talking about Bo, everybody, whatever. I was like, yo, like, he's like a long, tall kid like me. He has like a lot of attacks, but he throws the kitchen sink. My coach came over. He's like, yo, you're gonna beat Bo. I'm like, dude, I know I'm gonna beat him. I know I got more stuff. He told me like, hey, like this position, let's play in this position. The position was the position that I used to beat Bo. I inside tripped him when he did the double arm throw that he does from when he stands up. He was on bottom. I was riding him. He reached back, double arm, and I inside tripped him right to his back, got back points, and I was able to win that or win that match. But he was after me. He had gotten a couple scores. It was pretty close. I got him on his back, so everybody was like, "It's a fluke," on the internet. And I was really into that stuff, dude. I was watching. I was looking at all the forums. I was like, "Yeah, like, all right." And they were all saying like he's gonna kill me the next time we wrestled. And we wrestled in the semis, and I had a pretty good run. Like I really just started believing in my double leg for the first time right before the match, or right before that national run. And I majored everybody up until that point. I think I got just majors all the way up to wrestle Bo, and I took him down first. I controlled the pace of the match. I rode him hard. He couldn't ride me. I was winning, and he got a score. Like, I was looking at the clock. I was like, dude, I'm about to beat him. He got a score toward the end, and I had a choice to make. Like, he took me down, and he had my leg in, like, a Turk position. And I had a choice to make. And I was like, like, ref, help me. Like, ref, like, he's holding. He should have to change this position. Ref. And that's the reason I lost that match, because later in the match, like, I got an escape and I almost scored right at the end. So I knew that I could win, and the entire crowd knew that me and him were like on the same level, right? So I put some respect on my name a little bit, because people were dogging me saying I was going to lose. But I didn't really believe that I could win. I wanted it to happen, right? So I went through that unbelief for a long time, dude. Like, I literally recently just got over that. But
wow.
I went through that unbelief all through my journey, but I knew I had ability, and I just needed to see it. So God would show me it, and he keeps showing me it different times. Like, he showed me it that night, and when I beat Bo, He showed me it in the semifinals when I should have won nationals that year because I should have believed to beat Miles Martin too. And you see these dudes are credentialed guys. Like Bo is like,
Yeah.
he's the baddest dude in the world right now, you know? So like I've been watching that and I've been feeding off that, but I've been asking God for evidence that he exists. And what he wants me to do is read John 20, verse 27, stop doubting and believe, which is what he told Thomas when he came back. He came back to visit Thomas after his death, and Thomas still didn't believe in him. And when he came back and he asked him, he's like, "All right, well, why don't you come over here and put your hands in the holes on the palms of my hand?" And Thomas was like, "Wow, like, okay, like I believe." And Thomas, I can't remember exactly how he was executed, but he was either sawed in half or he was crucified and burned or something like that.
Right.
Because he wouldn't say that didn't happen. They went up to him and was like, all you have to do is say that it didn't happen. And he was like, I'd rather you take my life. And that's the type of belief I have now. But yeah, I don't even know how we got there.
Good.
But
You're
man,
good.
like I didn't have that belief to become the best at my sport at the time.
Right. And I think it's interesting to note that you said that you just noticed that now, but I kind of want to go back a little bit. You made some good points. First thing too is it's a two-part question. How do you, when you see somebody so many times during the season, what's the game plan and the strategy? And also then after that, what is your opinion of Bo Nickal? You mentioned very briefly, but and how he's doing. What's your opinion of him and what he's done for the sport?
So you asked me about wrestling the same opponent multiple times?
Right. What's the mindset and behind that? Because we all see that, being a fan of the sport, we see that a lot of times in duels and the conference and then nationals.
Yeah, you got to wrestle those situations with the presupposition that it's a different match, because you have to assume that this dude is a different wrestler because he's had time to either develop or get worse, and you have to assume that you are either a better or worse wrestler. And this is just from the outside looking in as a coach, right? So as the individual, as the athlete, personally, I assumed that the guy was getting better. But I also assumed that I got better, and I believe that I got better because I was putting in the work. So I just trusted that I got better enough to beat whatever growth that they had beat. But I also with the understanding that I may be in much different positions now that we had wrestled before.
Right.
So maybe the guy will avoid certain positions and wrestle in other positions. But you can also see where a guy's fear lies, right? So if I have a really good double leg and I double leg the guy 3 times the first time we wrestled and I'm wrestling him again, now I know for fact that I don't have to really score on the double leg as much. I really just have to show it, right? I really just have to believe that, feature it, show it a little bit, and I'm going to get the reactions that I want to set up some other things. And once they start wrestling into the reactions that I'm setting up for the other things, guess what opens up again? The double leg.
Yeah.
Okay. So
got
you got it. Yo, we can talk circles around wrestling, bro. Like this thing is it's a circle inside a circle inside a circle, but it's finite. It has its limits. And I think I figured it out.
Right. And the thing about Bo Nickal, what do you think about him and how he's added to the sport as well as being a UFC popular?
Bro, Bo Nickal is my brother, dude. He's my brother. I don't really know him like that. Like we see each other in passing and we always talk to each other in passing. We've seen each other on podiums and we've always greeted each other on podiums. But I have no doubt in my mind that that's my brother. Like I think that, man, like if he needed something from me, like he got it. If he needs to come stay at my house, he's here. Like easy. But I don't really know him at the same time. I hope that he can continue to just have success and have such strong belief, man. He really believes in himself. He really trusts God, which is great. And he's making a beautiful life for himself.
Absolutely. And lastly, Nate, as we're closing in on time, I wanted to kind of highlight your being the president of the Black Wrestling Association. Black Wrestling Association is to inspire, connect, empower Black wrestlers and allies to grow wrestling through representation, equality, and opportunity. Join now. But most importantly, you as the president, as well as other wrestlers, you mentioned something, I think on your website, I read that you guys, one day was a phone call, or you had a prior podcast with USA Wrestling, and you talked about how you, James Green, other wrestlers, Kevin Jackson, Jordan Burroughs, all had a conversation one time and decided that you were going to start something great, which is that BWA. What was that conversation, and where were those commonalities and where you guys both saw the same issue?
Yeah, so I think a big thing to know, like, so I actually stepped down from Black Wrestling Association presidency.
Mm.
So I'm not the president currently. The president is a really good friend of mine, and he's doing a really good job. He's actually the brother of another really good friend of mine who's actually helping him and just kind of partnering with him to continue to bring the mission forward. So I'm doing everything that I can to just spread the word and encourage Black athletes to get involved in the sport. I think that there's a home for you here. We love you. We care about you. We care about your situations and your circumstances. We care about your the demographics on your team. We want to see more of you. And I think Black Wrestling Association just creates an avenue for that and a pathway for that explicitly, which is a beautiful thing. So shout out to those guys. Please, yeah. Black Wrestling Association on Instagram. What is it? I think it's just Black Wrestling Association. So
Yeah, Black Wrestling.
it's pretty straightforward to find it. Check it out and support. Those dudes are doing the Lord's work, man. They're doing great stuff. And I'm just trying to be a light and trying to do my best to help even at a distance without forcing it. You know what I mean?
Nice. Nate, how can people reach you, and what's next for you besides coaching?
Yes, I think a great way to reach me is just on Instagram, Nate the Great Jackson, and yeah, man, I'm grateful for the platform. I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet you. I hope that we continue to have conversations like this off air because this is great, and like this is really great, and this means a lot. Like I haven't had an interview in like it's been months. I don't think I maybe have had like 2 interviews this year, but dude, there was a time where I was having a lot. So I'm grateful to be out of the limelight a lot, but I'm happy that you gave me a platform to kind of share where I am now.
Absolutely. Nate, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you so much.